ULM Warhawks, 50 commits. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, a little bit tardy today. Apologize for that. It got away from me yesterday with the Cajuns loss. We'll get to that. App State and the Cajuns lose. James Madison hangs on, and Southern Miss overcomes adversity. We'll go over all of the Sunbelt basketball, but let's talk about signing day. And I know yesterday I posted the recruiting. I maybe didn't realize that because other people were posting other lists. Same place, 24/7 Sports. I'm like, well, how's that the difference? Well, one was the high school recruiting and one was overall. Southern Miss still ends up with the number one class, all right, in both overall and recruiting. But the one that caught my eye, and we've had Coach Bryant Vincent on, I mean, he turned it over. A lot of times when these, and it's different now because it's the portal, so we get it. But you really don't count the first class because, I mean, he got the job in December. You got a bunch of people, or maybe November. And, you know, signing day is early. And you can't really put together a full class, right? You don't have time to recruit. Yeah. Coach Vincent put that to shame. 50 commits with transfers and recruits. And he got 36, according to 24/7, signed letters of intent. And then he got 11 transfers. And then 3 hard commits who may or may not have already signed. That's a lot, right? You have 85 scholarships, and then you may have 115 with walk-ons and blue shirts and gray shirts and whatever the case may be. 50. Over half of the roster is being turned over. I asked Coach Desimo, how do you go about learning like 105 names or something like that? And he's like, well, you don't really have to learn that because you got years and you're only bringing in, somewhere around, 25 guys, and you can learn them over the spring and you learn while you're recruiting them. And Brian Vincent's got to learn 50. 50, the big 5-0. We'll see what ULM does. Here's the thing, right? You can't say, well, this wasn't really our first class. Yeah, it is now. I don't even care where the class ranks. You're bringing in 50 guys. Overall rank 123rd in the nation. They finished 11th in recruiting. And overall, let's see where they finished. So recruiting would just be the high school guys. The total overall, ULM finished still 13th. So it's not exactly quality over quantity. In this case, it's quantity over quality. And there is a discrepancy because someone commented about, let's talk about that 4-star. And so they do have one 4-star. In fact, they may be the only team in the conference that has a 4-star listed. Okay. But there is a discrepancy here. So if you go to the website there, they have a 4-star. It's Jaden Hamlin. And he's listed in the football commits as a 3-star, highly touted 3-star, 6'5", 315-pound defensive lineman. The thing is, if you go to the bottom and they say the top recruits that they've had, all-time commits, Jaden Hamlin is a 4-star. So in the list of commits, he's a 3-star. And at the bottom, all-time commits, he's a 4-star. So some piece of the 24/7 Sports website, not, the spreadsheet hasn't connected with each other. But nonetheless, he's a highly touted kid. So that's where that is. So unbelievable that ULM has 50 commits. That's unheard of, unprecedented. I know we're in unprecedented times, but that's a ton. That is a ton. We'll see what happens going forward. 36 high school kids, 11 transfers. Maybe 39 high school kids. 39 high school kids total, 11 transfers. Okay. Let's check out the rest of the Sun Belt. And actually, let me go back to my tweet because I tweeted it out. So yesterday, I did tweet out the class, the recruiting class of 24/7. It would have been from Tuesday night. All right. And so I guess it was going back and forth between Southern Miss and Arkansas State. South Alabama was 3. Cajuns were last. So then I posted the recruiting, the high school, and the overall on Thursday morning just to see how it would compare. And still, let's see the overall. So you did have some big movement in here. All right. High school-wise, Southern Miss is 1, Arkansas State 2, Coastal Carolina 3, South Alabama fell to 4. All right. You go to the overall, Marshall moved up a lot with the transfers. Texas State moved up a lot with the transfers. And James Madison moved up a bunch. We had Bob Chesney on. They moved up a bunch. Because if you go back to the high school recruiting, Marshall is 9th. But overall, they're 2nd. All right. Texas State is 8th. High school recruiting, overall, they're 3rd. And James Madison is listed as 10th in high school recruiting. And overall, they're 5th. So they got a bunch. I mean, the top schools all got a bunch. I mean, no one's got less than 30 commits in the top 6. Southern Miss, Marshall, Texas State, Coastal Carolina, James Madison, and Arkansas State. Georgia Southern finished 7th with 29. Troy came up big. They finished strong. They had 38 commits. Where were they on the high school recruiting? So they were 6th in the high school recruiting with 29 commits. And they still ended up with some 38 commits overall. South Alabama, oddly enough, high on the rankings with the high school recruiting, but fell to 9th overall with 27 commits. App State, 27 commits. Georgia State, 25 commits. The Cajuns, they did move up from 14 to 12, but only 20 commits. There's going to be a hole in there somewhere. And maybe they fill some spots in the spring and hopefully hold on to the team. Outside of a couple of players, and a couple of very good players, the Cajuns did hold on to most of their team, okay? And even Mike Desimo said, you're always going to lose a couple of players. Doesn't matter who you are. Monroe finishes 13th overall, but still 50 commits is 50 commits. And Old Dominion finishes last with 25 commits. Let's check out all of the – here's a couple of things, So a lot of the commits that Monroe got, they only got – some of their guys are not ranked. We'll see if that happens. And for those who don't think that these rankings matter, all I do is go back to Nick Saban. He finished 2nd one year and claimed that Jimbo Fisher bought his class, who finished 1st. That's how much it gets under these guys' skin. All right. That's how much it matters to the top guys. So Monroe only has 9 3-stars. They get the 1 4-star-ish. But teams like Arkansas State, they signed 23 3-star guys. Pretty good for a team that finished 6th in recruiting. Southern Miss and Marshall. Southern Miss has 23. Marshall has 20, right? The Cajuns have 12. All right? A lot of good, Georgia Southern signed 21 3-star guys. So there is some good quality coming in. We're still waiting to see, who's going to be the quarterback for Texas State. That's going to be a thing. And who wins the job at Georgia State and Georgia Southern. So there is a lot to go digest with all of that. Even following Syracuse, some guys did not commit yesterday. So there could be some more players that do commit. And then again, we got the spring portal. So we'll see how that goes. But congrats to Southern Miss for getting that number 1 class, both as the high school recruiting and overall, the Fighting Will Halls coming back strong in 2024. We'll see if that translates to on the field. All right, let's go on the court. We'll come back and we will talk college basketball. The two hottest teams in the Sun Belt facing off each other next Saturday end up falling short as they both get upset. We'll do that after we tell you a little bit about FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all of those who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. I heard Matthew Berry from ESPN suggest former Ragin Cajun Eli Mitchell over 1.5 carries. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. The two hottest teams in the Sunbelt fell last night. App State losing on the road to Texas State in a ballgame. I think Texas State was ahead most of the game. Cajuns fall to Georgia State. We talked about that one. I kind of thought that Georgia State, I mentioned how Georgia State has these close losses. I still thought the Cajuns were going to win and cover, I believe. Could be a little homer pick, admittedly. But outside the first 6.5 minutes, this was all Georgia State, and you could kind of see it. Even Bob Marlin says we should have had a bigger lead than 9 at half, 39-30. That's not awful. It was a 14-point lead to begin with, 18-4. And the thing is, Georgia State couldn't put anything in the bucket. Well, that's not going to last. They shot like 1 for their first 10. Well, that's not going to last. And the Cajuns got off to a hot start. The problem was, even in the first half, Georgia State was getting easy layups, going right to the bucket, finishing no problem. They also did, defensively, they doubled Hosanna Kentucky. And they're going to cover Kentrell Garnett and maybe even Kobe Julian. But, if he can find somebody else, that's pretty good. That's what I thought Arkansas State should do. Double team Kentucky because they just don't match up with them. Double team them and cover one shooter. You can't cover them all, right? But let's let Themis shoot it. I let Joe Charles shoot it, right? But I'm not going to let Kentrell shoot it or Kobe Julian shoot it. Tough to cover all of that. And they did a good job with it. Kentucky had 4 shots, 2 for 4. Had some good passes and then threw some others away. But Georgia State just battled, right? And, you could very well be down by 25 before the 10-minute mark, and they just kept on coming back. And, the Cajuns hit a couple of threes to get it back up to 9. They actually finished strong. Marlin called the use it or lose it timeout at the end of the half, and I think they got 5 points out of it. Julian had a 3, and then they got a turnover, and they got a bucket out of it, and they hit 2 free throws. I think they did well to end that half where they were. But you give it up to Georgia State. They just kept on coming. They kept on coming. I thought the Cajuns were lazy offensively. Like Kobe Julian had this big first half, 20 points, but only 8 in the second. And he's taking like a 27-footer. And then boom, bada bing, a couple of threes, and Georgia State never looked back. There was one questionable call. And let me rephrase that. It wasn't a questionable call. It was a foul. All right. It was 70-68. Cajuns down by 2. And Garnett is covering. Oh, now I got to look at it. Was it Lane? I think it was Lane. Let me see. Out by the 3-point line. And Georgia State had run the shot clock down to where it's a little bit iffy. And yeah, Lane. No, let me see here. It was Lane. Lane was going up for a shot, and Garnett reached and clobbered him. After the presser, Bob Marlin was, he's like, I'll believe my player. We'll see. Here's the thing. Even watching it live, why is Garnett reaching like that? And he knew he did it because he put his hands up like I didn't touch him. And as soon as that happens, he got him. And then watching the replay, he totally grabbed the arm. He totally hit the arm. And just a bad play by the Cajuns. Now, we'll see what happens. You could say the Cajuns actually changed defense. They got 2 misses out of it. They went to a 1-3-1 They got a miss, but an offensive rebound was put back in by Georgia State. And then they got another miss, and then Joe Charles fouled. So the defense actually worked, but they couldn't finish off the play. Yeah, I don't know if Lane makes the three or if Georgia State, rebounds it. But if not, it's a 2-point game with a minute and a half to go. Yeah, a minute 46 to go. So who knows? Once he made those threes, he made all 3 free throws, by the way. It was going to be, the game was basically over. Cajuns, I don't think hit a field goal in the last 4.5 minutes. They did not play well down the stretch. One of my concerns was how good is this Cajuns team? And they did not play well second half. All the credit goes to Georgia State, but I don't think the Cajuns played very well either. All right, meanwhile, App State with a loss on the road. Their only second loss of the season in the Sun Belt. Is that really a trap game? They played the Georgias. They're going back home to play the MAC. I was kind of shocked. I got this totally wrong. We did mention, watch out for Texas State a couple of games ago. You get a couple of, you win one, all of a sudden you gain a little confidence like ULM did, rattling off 3 in a row. And that's what Texas State did, right? They got embarrassed last week against the Cajuns. They got embarrassed by 20. And then they beat South Alabama. And then they beat Southern Miss. And now they're getting App State. And I'm not sure App State had the lead in this ballgame. Every time I saw it was 29-26 at halftime, Texas State. And let me see. Oh, they led 14-12. Is that their only lead of the game? App State led 14-12, and that was basically it. Let's see if they led at all, if they got in the second half. So good job by Texas State. The loss by App now moves them into second place. I'm not sure how much that matters. Maybe these regular season titles do matter. Maybe coaches get bonuses. I'm not sure how much that matters. You just still need to finish in the top 4. And I'm not sure about avoiding, JMU or App. Somewhere along the way, you're going to play somebody, and there'll probably be an upset or two. Maybe South Alabama benefited from that last year, getting all the way to where they did. But anyways, App State is now actually behind Troy for first place in the Sun Belt Conference standings. Harcum had 13. Gregory had 12. Spillers only had 9. Abson only had 4. Those guys usually are in double figures, right? Sykes had 17 for the Bobcats, and Turner had 11. Mason off the bench, although 5 of 14 from the floor, he had 12. See, App State was held to 41% shooting. Texas State didn't shoot it all that well either. They just have 42%. But Texas State pulled an App State by playing really good defense against the Mountaineers. Texas State takes down App State 63-56. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll recap the rest of the Sun Belt. Southern Miss overcoming the missing Jay Ladner, who apparently is doing better. We're glad to hear that. We'll do that next on Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Let me tell you about Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsors deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Right now, all Gametime users get $100 off a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Terms apply. Just download Gametime app and use code VEGAS100, Vegas100, for $100 off a big game ticket. Or, if you're not going to the game, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Allegedly, we're going to have the new South Alabama coach for tomorrow's episode. So we may do a bonus episode on Saturday to preview Saturday's and Sunday's action. We'll see. That's the schedule. Things are known to change. We'll see. If we don't have Major Applewhite on, we'll just preview, maybe more recapping of the signing day and a look ahead to Saturday's action. If we do have Major Applewhite, then maybe we'll do a bonus episode on Saturday to preview the Saturday basketball action. The Cajuns, due to Mardi Gras, are playing Sunday. Don't think you can get to the Cajun Dome on Saturday. They may have even issues on that on Sunday as well. So, but we hopefully will be back in time for the Super Bowl is what's most important. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's check out the rest of the action from the Sunbelt on a Wednesday. Big win for Southern Miss. Both of these teams, Southern Miss and ODU, missing their head coaches. ODU's been missing their coach for the better part of the season. Jeff Jones struggled, I think, at the end of January or the end of November, beginning of December. Not only is he trying to come back from cancer, but he had a heart issue as well. And Jay Ladner woke up on Tuesday, and he had an issue with a heart as well. And Southern Miss comes from behind at home, trailing at halftime, not much, 34-33, but they beat Old Dominion 78-73. If you've ever watched a Southern Miss ball game, all right, Juan Cardona is not only is he an assistant coach, but he's part-time cheerleader as well. He probably could use a little decaf, right? Maybe cut down the Red Bulls to 1 or 2. But he's the emotional leader on the bench. You'll see Jay Ladner coach, and he can get emotional as well. But Cardona is really the guy, not only to pump up his team, but he's pumping up the crowd, right? The little guy, he'll stand on the seat and get the crowd going. And he took over for Southern Miss this week, or at least yesterday, and probably for the time being until I would be surprised if Jay comes back this year. His health is important. But he got him going, and it's emotional, right? This is a real life situation, right? I mean, there is an incredible amount of BS that these coaches have to deal with, right? There's a great video of the Tulsa, I think, football coach talking about a kid who's looking for an NIL deal, and he's got dogs and a girl, and, the coach is telling him what to do. Well, now these kids are dealing with their head coach, I think, had a heart attack, right? And that's tough to deal with, these 20-year-olds, right? I mean, most of their fathers are probably in their early 40s, maybe early 50s, depending on, where they are in the pecking order and the amount of kids and siblings that they have. So they're not used to this. And now they have somebody they look up to, and it's hard for, Coach Cardona, the other assistants, right? They have to lead, and they did. They did a good job. And Juan he was living out of his car with a family of 5. I've slept out overnight for a bottle of bourbon in the car. And that's just one night. I can't imagine having a family of 5 living out of a car. And so when Juan Cardona is telling you how much he appreciates Jay Ladner, I mean, it is sincere. Feels like Coach Ladner sort of has saved Juan Cardona. So good job by Southern Miss to win that ball game, 78-73. It was a good game. Austin Crowley back to the way he was last year. 30 points on 11 of 21 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. Had an outstanding ball game. Ivory had 16, and Iwakar had 12. Still missing Andre Curbelo and Victor Hart. I got to wonder. They could be making sure about Hart, but Curbelo, if he's dealing with concussion, that he may be done. We'll see. Hopefully they can come back. They only dressed 10 guys. For Old Dominion, Jenkins had 22 and Williams had a 17 in a valiant effort. Southern Miss improves to 7-5, so they are 6th in the Sun Belt. Elsewhere, Troy, they covered. I thought Marshall would stay close. This was a blowout from the get-go. 16-point lead at half and 82-66. This was all Troy. They're now tied for first. They're 10-2 overall. Marshall drops to 5-5. Both those records in the Sun Belt. Rigsby had 19 for Troy. Muhammad had 17. Dowd had 12. Connerway, 21 minutes off the bench, if you will. He had 13. For the Herd, Voiles led the way with 16. They actually had 4 players in double figures, but that game was a blowout from the get-go. All right, elsewhere, Monroe picks up their 4th win. Relatively easy win, 79-75 over Coastal Carolina. Coastal, I think, made a little bit of a run in the second half, but kind of you got to feel good about yourself. Monroe winning at home, beating the Chanticleers. James Madison beats Arkansas State. Arkansas State did cover. They didn't win, so I would have lost money on the money line. But Arkansas State didn't go away. It was an odd ball game because they didn't really light it up from 3 either. They had 4 threes in the first half, and Arkansas State did, and 5 threes in the second half. Trying to figure out where they came back. But this was like this is a double-digit lead with like 4 or 5 minutes to go. And they got it down. They finished down by 4. Todd had 18 off of the bench for Arkansas State, leading the way. Caleb Fields, 15, and Ford had 13. For James Madison, Noah Friedel led the way with 19 points, 6 of 12 shooting. And, of course, Terrence Edwards Jr., he had 14. How about Friedel had the 10 rebounds? How about that? Don't see that very often. From the guard, he had the double-double. This game was 35-22 at half. And I noticed the stats. Arkansas State made 1 2-pointer in the first half. 1. They were 5 of 22 from the field and 4 of 18 from 3. They had 8 points from the free throw line. 8 of 8 from the free throw line. So 2 and 12 is 14 and 8 is 22. They made 1 2-pointer in the first half. That's tough to overcome. Make a couple more and maybe they do. But, I got to say, Brian Hodgins has Brian Hodgson has the Red Wolves moving in the right direction. That is for sure. All right. I think we've gone over all of it. Let's check out the standings just in case. Again, Troy would be on top of App State. That's App State's previously only loss in the conference. So Troy is in first place, App State in second. James Madison 1 game back in third. Cajuns now 1 game back in fourth. Southern Miss and Marshall, both, I guess they're tied for 5th at that point in time. Arkansas State is 7th. Georgia State and Georgia Southern are 8th at 5 and 7. South Alabama 4 and 8, tied with Texas State and Monroe. Coastal Carolina 3 and 9, and Old Dominion is last at 2 and 10. Remember, all of the teams get in to the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. That's why it takes almost all week, and there are a couple off days in between. All right. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We're continuing to grow, a little up and down in subscriptions yesterday. Softball is starting today. All right. We'll be out at Lamson Park for the Cajuns, and we'll try to get around to all the teams that are doing softball. Baseball starts next week. And again, the rumors have it that Major Applewhite from South Alabama will join me on Friday's episode. We'll see. Let's cross our fingers. All right. Things tend to change around here. All right. Again, thank you so much. Please subscribe on YouTube. If you see it, like it, share it, do all that stuff. It is a big help. See if we can get to, let's see, I'm going to do a little bit of a goal here. What about 1,300 by April 1st, right? That's a month, more than a month and a half. See if we can get about 175 subscriptions by April 1st. I think that's a legit goal. 1,300. All right. See if you guys can help me out with that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Dave Schultz, your host, and you've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.